Lisa, you're the managing partner of Philip Liew and Company, a firm that your father established in 1971. Tell us about your journey.
My father was in a partnership in 1971 with other partners, and he came out on its own in 1992, the year that I joined him after I graduated from uni from Australia. And I've been with him ever since. So it's been a good 20 over years.
So CPA Australia's firm, The Future Research, has actually told us that firms are going to evolve quite dramatically over the next 3 to 5 years. Your father moved out of partnership to set up his own firm. What's on the horizon for your firm?
Well, I guess in the next 5 to 10 years, it's still going to be a family firm. I think family businesses will continue to exist, and there is perhaps a cultural explanation for family businesses. In Asia, there has been a tradition of family-owned businesses, and it's the same for accounting practice.
So you don't see any change in the next 5 to 10 years for Singapore or Asian accounting practices?
It will evolve, and it will continue to evolve. And what I see coming through would be collaborations, lots of collaborations. And in fact, we are beginning to do that in Singapore now. Recently, 2 years ago, the CPA Australia Singapore division started an initiative called the Singapore Accountancy Alliance. And 8 SMPs have come together to share resources and knowledge and enjoy economies of scale. And out of that 8 firms, 5 are family firms.
So is the alliance very similar to like a network firm, or is it just a shared resources?
At this point, we're still individual firms, loose alliance, just sharing resources. But I think going forward, there's always a possibility that we have more structured collaboration.
So can you give me some examples of the type of collaboration of initiatives between the firms?
Oh yes, I think the first thing we did was joint training. So because all of us need to train our staff, so what we did, or what we are doing right now, is we have monthly training for all for the staff of all firms. So the partners will take turns to deliver the training. So instead of, for example, me having to train 12 times a year for my staff, I do it once or twice, and we rotate it around. And that's good sharing of resources, because then I can devote my time for other things, maybe serving my clients better.
How have your staff felt about this initiative?
Oh, they love it. They love the opportunity to network, because we are small, so we don't have that many staff. But when we come together, there is a lot of opportunities for sharing, for even some fun, because recently during the International Accountants Day, we came together to support a charity for a day, and we had some games, and they had so much fun.
So has the alliance actually delivered any other benefits?
Oh yes, we are also working on the SSQC1, which is the quality standard for accounting firms. What we are doing is to have a base policies that cuts across, and of course each firm will then tailor it to suit our individual firms. And I think with that we can still enjoy joint training, and that's good economies of scale, I think.
Now, one of the benefits I would consider sharing is sharing of good practices. Is there any reluctance to share some of your good practices, because you are actually, the alliance is actually potentially with some of your competitors?
Yes, I think we're all able to look beyond that. We have a shared vision of working together. So instead of competing with each other, when in circumstances where we are not allowed, or we should not do certain two services for independence, for example, then we will then refer the client to the fellow alliance member. Projects that's in the pipeline would be similar HR practices, HR policies, for example, because staff is hard to come by. Human resource is very scarce in Singapore. So with similar policies, it's easier to roll out activities.
So what I imagine one of the benefits of the alliance is very much sharing of technical experience.
Yes, technical experience. Yes, and one of the projects that we have embarked on is the SSQC1, quality control, which is equivalent to the ISQC1. We are currently on that project and doing it as a group.
Now, the challenge for all accounting firms around the globe is that regulation continues to evolve. What will be the impact of regulatory changes in the Singapore marketplace?
I see the firms moving away from the low fee, high volume model. We're also seeing the move away from compliance and doing more advisory services.
So this is a strategy that's being adopted as a result of changes in audit thresholds?
That's right. And also the emphasis on quality. And out of that, I think there is a push towards more consolidation, and maybe we may see more of that in the coming years. Yes.
I know in the past recruiting and retaining staff has been a big challenge for lots of practices in Singapore and Asia. Lots of competition for great staff. What strategies have you adopted to deal with that challenge of retaining and recruiting staff?
That's a perennial problem, and we're still facing with that now. So one of the things that we lack as compared to the bigger firms is branding. Young people especially would like to associate themselves with established brands. But because we lack that, what we do to compensate that would be to provide work-life balance. That's important for people starting families. So that's one of the ways that we try to retain our staff. And of course, we're also working on the branding front, and with the Alliance, we're also doing some joint branding.
Great. Now tell me, impact of globalisation. So we've got the impact of the challenges of recruiting and retaining staff. What's the impact of globalisation on accounting firms in Singapore?
We can't ignore globalization. In the year 2010, the Singapore government did two key things. They chart out a 10-year vision to transform the Singapore economy to be more competitive globally. And productivity and innovation became the buzzwords. So, and in the same year, they have also laid out a 10-year vision for the accountancy sector in Singapore. And they have formed, at that time, a government-led committee to transform the accountancy sector that came up with 10 sweeping recommendations to sort of bring us forward. And they have given us a lot of help to try to improve the productivity and to encourage innovation. And they gave us things like grants, tax breaks, to encourage and help us along. Yeah.
Is the government wanting you to compete more in a global marketplace?
Yes, of course. They have a vision for us to be a global accountancy hub.
When you're reflecting on the annual performance of your firm, how do you take a health check?
By benchmarking. So one of the ways, which is quite uniquely Singapore, would be to participate and bid for projects under the public-private partnership. And that's a procurement initiative by the government to allow the private sector to do some non-core services for the government. So because of the process and the way it's being done, which is quite transparent, so we are able to sort of benchmark ourselves. Yeah.
And have you seen a changing gender profile of practitioners in Singapore and in Asia?
Yes, I think so. It used to be predominantly male. Now we see more female coming in to do public practice.
And as a result, have you had to change the way you employ staff and the flexibility you provide within the firm?
Yes, we have. Over the years, we have gone on to flexi hours, and that's very useful for employees who are starting families. So we allow them to do maybe 3/4 days or part-time basis, and then come back on full-time when they are more when the kids are more grown up.
You are your father's succession plan?
Yes, definitely. In fact, it's the onus is now on me to do my own succession plan for the next generation.
And when you're actually recruiting staff, do you give consideration about the potential that staff member being a partner of the future?
Yes, I do. I think it's important to always keep in mind, the need for succession, the people who's able to succeed and all that. So yes, I'm constantly looking out. In fact, in my own little way, I've started planting the seed early. During the holidays, I'll get my children to come to the office to help out.
So you see your future family members as actually continuing in the family business?
I'm keeping my options open. It's always good to plant the seed early. So if they're interested and they are accountants, why not?
And what strategies have you adopted to actually retain some of your senior staff members that are non-family members?
We empower the staff. In fact, we have got staff with us that started with my dad. So she has been with us for, I think, 30 years, even before I joined the firm.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we do is, we train them, we empower them to make their own decisions within certain framework, and I think they feel good and they feel that they belong when they can make certain decisions on their own. Yes.
When you're looking to actually recruit a staff member, what's the strategy you adopt?
Well, I look for somebody who can fit into our culture, somebody who share our values and our vision, and I think the rest would be how we train them and how we sort of induct them into the firm.
Overall, how well do you think the public practice sector in Singapore is prepared for succession planning?
I think there is still work to be done. I recall when I first started in public practice, succession planning was not on the minds of a lot of practitioners. Still remember a member who literally worked till he dropped. He had a heart attack while having a meeting with the clients. So it's really sad to see, a practice that has been built up over the years just gone like that. So we try to bring the awareness of succession planning. And if you recall, Peter, you came over to Singapore in 2012. You did a session for us on succession planning, where I think more than 50 practitioners attended. So I think that was a good start. And now, we're definitely more aware that they should really seriously look at succession planning.
Mergers and consolidations are a trend that we've identified in the Firm of the Future report. Are you actually noticing firms being more prepared to merge or consolidate in Singapore?
I think there is still a lot of resistance. I'm not sure whether it's cultural. Maybe they've heard many horror stories of mergers gone wrong. But the way things are going, I think it's inevitable that there will be some consolidation.
What would be your top tips for family businesses to prepare for the future?
I think we need to communicate. That's very important. And of course, to leverage on the strength of each family member and focus on the business.
And your tips to prepare for succession?
Start early. In fact, when you start your practice, you should have an idea of your exit and continuously review your succession planning plans. And I think that's the way to go.
And any other observations that you'd like to share?
Well, I think what I would like to say is, public practice is not a sunset industry. I would encourage young graduates to consider public practice. There's a lot of challenging but good work that we can do, and there are a lot of passionate people around to mentor. So yeah, should seriously consider public practice.
Well, Lisa, thank you very much for spending some time today sharing your experiences.
My pleasure.
And good luck on your journey moving forward.
Thank you.